So we got a clutch basket off a 96 model Cr125. I identified the problem after having a few clutch issues. First one was the springs were out of spec, so we'll be replacing the springs, clutch springs. Also, we've got a notched clutch basket here, so you see it's formed grooves where the pressure plates, the friction plates and the fibres are actually pushing against the actual basket itself. So what we do first of all is we get an average distance between the original mark, which is the ridge on the basket, to the other side. So we measure between the distance between here and here on the narrow part and the wider part. It's always narrower and then wider. Each of these lobes actually tapers in as well slightly. So what we're going to do is actually get a basic measurement between here and here, and we're going to start filing down these notches, and then we're going to get a final measurement between here and here. So we want to get it doesn't have to be perfect, but a measurement that's fairly similar in terms of the widths along each one, so slightly narrower, slightly wider. So when we're filing down these notches, we want to make sure that first of all the filing motion forwards and backwards, you can do that at the start to get the majority of the bulk of the marks off, or the notches, but as you get to the end you want to file in a correct way, which would be one smooth thread along, so we don't get further grooves and pitfalls in there where we're filing back and forward and we're getting uneven edges. We're starting to get these little grooves, so we don't want that. We want nice straight edges all the way along, narrow to wide. So this one here I've actually done, it's been filed. This one here obviously it hasn't been done, you can see the difference. Okay, so just to give you an idea, we just find a mark along here that we can file. It gives it that angle. So we can start off along that mark. Until we get the majority of the bulk off. It'll require a little bit more than that, and then we start to even it out where we're just... Obviously it's better to be done in a vise. At the moment I don't have a vise, so I'm just doing it on this table and just making sure I'm creating that same angle and just running the file through. Until we get that shape. So once we've done that, we can then look at other ways to modify the basket to increase oil flow. So what we'll be doing is measuring points on the basket lobes and drilling holes to allow for more oil flow. So at this stage I'll stop the video and then I'll continue filing these notches, making sure that the end result is an even mark from the narrow part to the wide part. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'll start videoing again. So just briefly before I turn the camera off, we need a caliper to measure. One of these digital calipers are good. So we can measure the widths between the gaps. Pencil, paper, WD-40, and a drill with the drill bit so that we can drill through these lobes. Okay, so I will start filing. Okay, so the second part of the video, we've finished filing those notches down. Generally you'll find that the notches are only on one side. When the clutch basket's spinning, when we're starting to put the bike in gear, the centre has stopped spinning, the clutch basket is spinning. Those steel plates and friction plates are actually pushing against the one side of the basket, and what that's doing is forming the notches. So the majority of the notches are going to be on that one side. So what we've done is we've filed them down. Just take note, some guys file these things down twice, some guys do 3 times. I'd recommend 1 mil notched groove is probably getting up to the limit. This one is on its limit. It's pretty much worst case scenario. I won't be filing them again after this. It'll be a throwaway job, and probably a Wazico basket or an Hinson. But yeah, I've filed it all down. You can see bad lighting again on the video, but you may be able to see it's a little bit smoother there than what it was before. Only small ridges on the other side, very minor, but the main area that was notched where the steels and the frictions are pushing against are pretty flush. What I've also done to increase oil flow is I've drilled 2 holes. I've just done a basic measurement round and gapped it. So 2 holes, every 3 notches have a gap, and then every 3 again have a gap, and every 3 again. So don't drill every single lobe. It's just to increase the oil flow to the steel plates and the friction plates. You don't want to have a large drill bit, just a average sized drill bit, enough to give it the oil a little bit of flow to the clutch. Also the inner clutch hub, you can do the same on this. This one's already got pre-drilled holes, just to increase that oil flow, and we want fluidity and making sure that it's always lubricated. So the main thing is too, with your filing motion, as I said, try not to file too much back and forward. It's only for the initial set part of the filing process, and then you're just going to come up and just drag it along, get even grooves, even filing motions. On the corners, if it's really badly notched, it'll actually form obviously a ridge there. This is only if it's badly notched, and you may need a very fine round file just to get that edge off. So when you're filing this, it's this angle, and we don't push down against the bottom of the clutch basket, we push against the wall where the actual groove is. We don't want to file too far, we just want to file it so it's nicely rounded, just in there. So we don't want divots and things like that, or we don't want big ridges. We just want to file it down so it's creating that angle. It doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to make sure that those plates are able to move in there. Okay, so that's that part done. For people that, once the clutch is out, you might want to take the steel plates and friction plates apart and sand down these steel plates if you find you've got a sticky clutch. If your clutch lever is still moving but the clutch is sticking, you may want to just rough up that steel fibre plate with about a 600 to 800 grit. Wipe the excess off, clean it all off, and make sure that it's, you don't need to sand too much. You're just roughing up the edge a bit so it's able to move, so the friction plate isn't just sticking to it. So the main thing with this basket is to remember that you don't want to, if it's too far gone, don't do it. This one's just within the limit. If it's too far gone, you're going to get the clutch slapping, and you probably, shatter a fibre plate, and you've got all sorts of issues there. So make sure that you, obviously, previously I was talking about the tools with your WD-40, your drill and all that. I'm just lubing the drill bit drilling the holes. I've got my steel brush to clean my files. I've got my 800 grit when I'm sanding the steel plates, and obviously my calipers, which I measured my springs, and I also measured my gaps between those gaps. I mean, you want to get an average, so mine was sitting around 15-10, and then it was gapping out. It wasn't perfect, doesn't need to be perfect between each one, so there's a different measurement from there to there, obviously. Make sure that when you're filing, don't file with your tools around like this sort of thing. You're going to get your shavings in there and it's just a pain. Okay, so I suppose now I'm going to clean it all up and put it in the bike.